Woohoo! And with that, season 1 is over of Ducktales. Woohoo! It's the Shadow War, as now Ducktales 2017 season 1 is officially over. And yes, this is me, the angry anime fan, and I'm very sorry about being late. It couldn't be helped. I had some promises to keep. But answers were answered and things were happened, and it was indeed an awesome finale. Was it mind-blowing? Maybe not mind-blowing, but it was definitely not bad, at least in my book. It had comedy, it had moments, and Magica the Hex was an awesome character, even though there were some moments there. So, well, first of all, it's me, the Angry Anime Fan, here to bring you of the DuckTales, woohoo, in a two-parter. The first parter is, of course, where the family of Duck are preparing to head towards Cape Suzette because, well, they want to get away from here. So Wenby and Launchpad prepares a surprise party in order to make them regret doing that. So, well, uh, and during this time, Magica uses Lena to try to get to Scrooge, but it turns out Scrooge has been moping so much over this guilt trip as well as all the other incidents that he has been drowning his sorrow in pizza and become pretty, well, it's not exactly what Magica wanted to take revenge on. Basically, yes, a pathetic attempt from pathetic. He is basically a pathetic version of his former self, in a way. And when Magica realizes this is not an act, she has actually become so frustrated that she slaps Scrooge. Because it turns out that there was a reason for having the number one dime in this continuation. Turns out that the number one dime did not hold the Midas touch as it did in the original comics. No, turns out that the Midas the number one dime has Magica's real body in it. So if you're asking me though, how come then she could communicate through Lena? Well, it turns out Lena's story was just as complicated. Turns out Lena wasn't just a normal duck. No, she was Magica's shadow brought to life in the shape of a young kid. Okay, I mean, she could have changed that into someone else. So why did you change to a kid? Or is that how Magica looked like when she was in that age? Who cares? Who knows? I don't complain. But I know another person did. So, but apparently Lena was immortal that time, seeing that she was Shadow, technically not a real duck. So, and that makes her desire for freedom more making sense, so to speak. Turns out that as a shadow of Magica, she had no free will originally, but living 15 years as a duck made her actually wish to have a life of her own, but Magica was never gonna give that. So eventually, Magica gets freed in an epic scene where we see Magica in this continuation for the first time. She's dressed very sexily, has a nice dark dress, and green feathers and lizard eyes. As she says her iconic line, "Hello, Scroogey, I've missed you." It's during this time, though, that Beakley enters the surprise party thanks to, well, Launchpad being Launchpad, and guilt trips the other family, revealing that she actually knew all this time that Mr. McDuck almost went bankrupt looking for Della. Although there's still a little plot hole in that. Before she was gonna take a break from, well, Scrooge working because she was tired of him always putting away his family. But if she knew all this, then why did she leave? I'm just saying. However, maybe it's in the end that she may have not known why Scrooge had done to try to get back Della. However, maybe she was just frustrated that Scrooge was always so prideful and never really explained that he did what he did. So in the second episode, which is the other parter, Magica is revived and she traps Scrooge inside a dime and summons the shadows of everyone else as she enters the bin, declaring she's gonna have her sweet revenge on Scrooge by destroying everything he loves, starting with the city. It's during this time when the Duck family sees the shadows and they all realize that it's Magica. Well, not the triplets, but unsurprisingly, Webby knows about this. So Donald rallies them, but suddenly when he says that, well, it turns out that Donald's voice is actually pretty hard to understand for a lot of people after all. So Gyro, who has actually enters this boat because his lab was destroyed during the Shadow Rebellion, so to speak, um, um, forces a Barksinator or something. It's actually named after Carl Barks. It's basically a voice translation or something, voice modulator, down Donald's throat, and his voice changes into that of Don Cheadle. And let me tell you, he actually sounds more awesome. Even the characters lampshade how he speaks normal, and it turns out that Donald has always said some badass moments, and he's actually pretty badass. It's just that because Donald is Donald, and because of his, well, voice, he has had a very hard time being, well, what's that word? Badass immediately, so to speak, you know. So, well, he has actually a pretty good badass boast when Beakley says, "Get ready for the storm. I am the storm." So he uses reverse psychology to let the boys and Webby stay, but during that time they decides to help anyway. So they go to Lena's house thinking that Lena is okay, but then actually finds where Lena has slipped and finds out the truth about Lena, that she was a shadow and working for Magica. Despite that, however, they still want to help Lena. So they swim down to the underground lab and then use the stairs, which is also a callback to another episode, until the shadows appear. But then they cut the power until finally they enter the bin, where they fight off Magica. It's pretty strange though that some kids can fight off a mighty speller than like Magica, but I guess it has something to do with Magica may be a powerful sorceress, but she still has to use a staff to use all her magic power. And in the end, I think while Magica is a very good villain in this, you know, version, she still is a coward. Because, well, it is what it is. Turns out that Donald also has a catchphrase: "Ducks don't back down." No, Dewey actually likes that catchphrase. So, using trouble, and it's also pretty strange how much Webby can actually combat Magica, but again, Magica is a coward, so I guess it makes sense. During this time, though, that the friendship bracelet she still wears still holds power, because after all, friendship is the most powerful magic, and it actually repels Magica's barriers until Magica's shadow that was Lena comes to life and manages and tries to fight off Magica, but unfortunately get vaporized. Angry at having lost her friends, Webby uses everything she can to get back at Magica. And Magica drops the number one dime that holds Scrooge until Dewey has it, and using Magica's own spell against her, frees Scrooge, who makes short works of Magica, and takes away her magic staff. And when it breaks, so does Magica's magic. She swears vengeance against Scrooge and uses her puff bombs. Unfortunately, though, she doesn't escape as dramatic as before. She just runs away. How she'll have her revenge, no idea, but given to the fact that Magica is still a threat here, I have a very big feeling we will be seeing her again. Also, another fun fact was that Gyro, as I said before, appeared this episode, and he was just as insufferable than ever, but he finally got some, well, well-deserved karma, in a way. Is the fact that when Magica captures him, she asks Scrooge, blink 1 for family member, blink 2 for unimportant employee, or something like that. And Scrooge blinks 2, so she just drops him in the water. Manny also has revealed to see Bulb as a brother, until Fenton appears and will fight off the shadow. And unfortunately, Donald's boat gets destroyed. again. But then again, the family makes up as Scrooge is freed. There's a callback to the first episode of Huey, Dewey, and the third one. He says that curse me killed, I have missed them kids. And yes, they are all reunited as a happy family. Unfortunately for Donald, the voice modulator broke and he's forced to cough it up. So well, so long to that cool voice. Magic is defeated, and even though that had nothing to do with the story of Della Duck, at least it had a very nice story of line of suspense. But then the episode ends with the moon, where we see the spirit of Celine has crash landed on the moon. As the TV operator suddenly gets started, we see Della Duck still alive, and for some reason can breathe in space. And also, well, listen, I'm not one to complain about these things, because it's a cartoon, and cartoon is what cartoon does. But if I have to do, yes, one tiny little complaint is, how is Della still alive? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm glad Della is still alive, because this once again just shows just how unique this Ducktales series is compared to any other before. Della's story is not over yet. We may get her back. We never got her back in the comics. We may get her back here. But if I have to do a little complaint, is the fact that, how has she survived? And I'm not talking about the crash. No, I'm talking about it's the moon. No oxygen. Not to mention she's been trapped there for 10 years. Where does the food come from? We see she has longer hair. That makes sense. But I'm just saying, how did she survive? I mean, if you ask me, I was hoping she had survived. But not on the moon. I was wishing she could have, gotten lost in a space civilization and been trapped there for a long time. And only then later on had find out the truth. In a way, I think that would have made more sense. But no, she's trapped on the moon. And somehow can breathe in space, or at least have oxygen for that, for 10 years and somehow sustain herself for 10 years. I mean, that's the only real flaw I have of this episode. I'm glad she's alive. It's just that I'm racking my brain here. How has she survived? I guess what it is. Oh yeah, and Darkwing Duck has a cameo here in the Let's Get Dangerous again. Regardless, Lena is not completely gone either. She has now turned into Webby's shadow, as a good shadow. So we will seeing her again. In fact, we saw some clips from Season 2. We have been promising a lot of different characters, including a new friend to Webby, I think. We've also been promised that goofy cousin of Donald. And finally, the three caballeros are also gonna show up in Season 2. Looking forward to that. I wonder if they're gonna have the same voices they had in that show, the Legend of the Three Caballeros. Have you seen that show? I have. It is actually pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's good. Speaking of which, I was really hoping we were gonna see Daisy Season 2 and her nieces. Of course, voiced by different ladies, just as the the triplets are. But Della's story is not over yet, and I think we'll be continuing it in Season 2. But who will be the main villain in Season 2? Will we have new antagonists? Will we have old antagonists? Or will they have something more? Either way, a very good finale. Yes, some nitpicking over there and there. Don Cheadle did a wonderful job as a different version of Donald. He actually made him sound cooler. I think that was the point. So, for me, I thank you for having let me review Season 1 of DuckTales 2017. Like and subscribe if you want to, and give me your thoughts if you have any.